Hello everyone, and welcome back to Alf Time. I'm your host Alf, and I'm assuming you like Mario if you're watching this video. In that case, how many of you remember this image? A few years ago, when Super Mario Odyssey was coming out, Nintendo released this little diagram of all the 3D Mario games. As you can see, it splits the franchise into two distinct timelines, Sandbox Mario and Course Clear Mario. I remember lots of people at the time being very excited about this image, and not without cause. This was a rare instance of us getting to see Nintendo actually categorize and talk about their games the way that we do, and I think that gave some people peace of mind. I certainly thought fondly of this breakdown when it was first posted. However, look a little more closely at this picture. Not at Leo from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds in a gorilla suit, but at the layout of games here. Two entirely separate categories with no gray area to speak of. Mario Galaxy is listed fully as a course clear game, and Mario Sunshine is fully listed as a sandbox exploration game. If you've played any of the games on this list, you probably know that's a vast oversimplification. Rather than a binary system, I think Mario games fall on more of a compass grid. For one axis, at the micro level, I'd put each game's individual level design on a spectrum from sandbox exploration to linear course clear. Are you running around open areas to try and find the objective you're looking to complete, or just trying to get from point A to point B? Then on a macro level, I also think it's worth discussing the game's story progression as a whole. Is it one straight shot to the end of the game, or can you do lots of the game's objectives out of order to get the same result? These two metrics and this diagram, I feel, are much more capable of categorizing 3D Mario as it progressed through time. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's fix Nintendo's timeline and start putting games on this chart. At the beginning of 3D Mario, we've got Super Mario 64. This game is very near to my heart, and its goals are very much sandbox-oriented. You jump into a level, and it's like, shoot man, here's a hint, figure it out. You can go over here, or maybe over there, the game's not gonna tell you. And wherever you choose to go, there's probably gonna be something for you to do. Another hallmark of sandbox level design is having the player return to the same stage for multiple challenges. Cool Mountain first time, you go over here and do this. Come back to Cool Mountain and there's something else for you to do. This is very exploration-y. In fairness, there are elements of simple A to B traversal here. Plenty of levels have a special path up the big hill or something, even if there's usually other stuff branching off. Also, certain objectives like the Koopa the Quick Race only show up when you've selected the right mission. That's not totally sandboxy. Moving over to the story progression axis, Mario 64 is still about as open as it gets. Ignoring glitches, Bob-omb Battlefield is the one singular level in this game that you're absolutely required to visit, and even then you only need 1 star. You have to do the 3 Bowser fights in order, and you have to unlock the basement before you can go upstairs, but there's so much freedom within those things. You can beat the entire game and never even find Shifting Sandland or Tick-Tock Clock. Aside from these 4 level groupings to unlock, almost everything can be done out of order. You need 70 stars to get to the final boss, and you can get them from wherever you want. Taking all this into account, I've got to put Mario 64 pretty far into the sandbox, non-linear corner of the grid. Please note that those aren't objectively good features for a game to have. Regardless, this is how I'd categorize Mario 64. Its levels are very explorative, and you can do tons of the game's objectives in any order you want, or not at all. Confidently in this corner of the chart. Super Mario Sunshine came out next, and it's probably the most controversial 3D Mario game. For the sake of this video, you'll note that it sits firmly on the Sandbox Mario side of Nintendo's official timeline. Let's take a closer look. At the micro level, Mario Sunshine's levels are very reminiscent of 64's. Come to Pinna Park once and you'll go this way, but next time you'll go over here. This level of gameplay variety clearly separates Mario Sunshine from the course clear Mario games. To a slightly lesser extent than its predecessor, Sunshine definitely falls on the sandbox side of this chart. However, the game structure is making me call some of this into question. Unlike in Super Mario 64, not all shines in this game are equal. In fact, any extra shines or blue coin shines you collect in the hub world accomplish basically nothing. There are technically a few cutscenes and item upgrades that happen after total shine checkpoints, but the game's final sequence is not one of those. You can only visit Mount Corona and fight Bowser once you've beaten the 7th objective in each of the main levels. And also, unlike in 64, you have to do almost every shine in order within those levels. If you want to do the 2nd or 3rd shine in Pianta Village before you cool off the flaming chain chomps, you just can't. In nearly every case, those other shines aren't in the level at all until you progress to their relevant mission. Once again, I'm not saying this is bad. Sunshine uses this system to make each level progress through its own mini story, and the levels change a little bit each time you visit. This isn't a negative design feature, but it is a very linear one. There is some variability in which order you can take on each of the main levels. Overall, this game is less sandboxy than Mario 64 in both categories. As such, I'm putting it here, close to the middle of the compass. Moving on to the first linearly labeled Mario game, we've got Super Mario Galaxy, a fan favorite and admittedly not a sandbox game. While you can return to older levels, even out of order sometimes, there's almost no exploration within said levels. You start on the first planet, then you get taken to the next one, and then the next one, and then you make it to the star. Oftentimes, coming back for a new mission in the same level feels like you're in a different place entirely. There's almost no retreading ground here to get familiar with an open area containing multiple objectives. Instead, you just get to the end. Every once in a while, somewhere like the Beach Bowl Galaxy will open things up a little, but rarely by a noticeable amount. These levels are straightforward on the micro level, but the game is a bit less so in the grand scheme of things. You largely need to visit every area and complete most of their challenges, but you can certainly do things out of order, or even skip a level here and there. Reminiscent of Sunshine, you need to get the Grand Star at the end of each little level group to beat the game. In all honesty, I think this is exactly as linear as Mario Sunshine. You don't have to do every mission from every level, but the trade-off now is that you need to finish each mini level group in order to unlock the next one. For the compass, I'm putting Galaxy comfortably in the course clear category for level design, but in line with Sunshine for story progression. Super Mario Galaxy 2 obviously shares a lot of similarities with the original, but it's also different in a few key ways. The level design is incredibly similar to Galaxy. You go from planet to planet, then you're at the end. It's a little more course clearish here, but still largely the same moment-to-moment gameplay. Galaxy 2's story progression is where things really narrow down. You still unlock new levels with multiple stars in them, but now you select things from a world map instead of a hub world. Okay, I guess there's kind of a hub world with some stuff to do, but you don't actually use this as a hub to access the game's worlds. The level select screen is basically a straight line with only a few minor detours. For the most part, you'll find yourself doing basically everything in order on your way to the end of the game. Taking all this into account, let's put Galaxy 2 on the compass. On an organizational level, this game is structured like a simplified version of its predecessor. It's only slightly outside Galaxy 1 in terms of course clear level design, and I'm putting it farther along the linear story structure axis. Let's simplify things even further with Super Mario 3D Land. There is no hub world. You will never go back to the same level to complete a different challenge. The world map is literally a straight line. Every single level is nothing more than a journey to the actual flagpole at the end. In both categories, it is unapologetically and completely linear, a course-clear Mario game. I cannot fathom a more linear game than this, so it's going way off in this corner of the chart. Not a bad game, I think it's really fun, but there's nothing to discuss here. This is A to B level design incarnate. Moving on. Super Mario 3D World is almost the same formula as 3D Land, but it is ever so slightly less linear. There's a single-digit number of instances where you can choose between two different levels, even skipping one of them if you want. Every once in a while, you'll get a chance to work out a little challenge in an open area on your way to the flagpole. It's basically just 3D Land again, but a little less one-dimensional, no pun intended. Same quadrant as its friend, just a little less harshly. We're finally back to Sandbox Mario now, this time with Odyssey. A phenomenal game with very open level design on a micro level. You can go wherever you want, whenever you want. Collect these moons over there, and skip the bosses if you really feel like it. You don't even get booted out of the level when you grab a moon. Just get this many to move on to the next area. Speaking of the next area though, the story progression of Odyssey is remarkably less open-ended. I'm pretty sure there's exactly one instance in the whole game where you get to choose where you're going next, and even then you have to go to both places eventually. Again, not a bad thing, but having to do every level in order is, by definition, linear. This one's kinda tricky to interpret because moons work so differently from stars in the previous games, but that's the angle I'm going with. As such, we're headed to a weird, uncharted corner of our graph with this one. Mario Odyssey belongs firmly in the sandbox exploration with a linear story part of this image. Who knew? Finally, let's throw on Bowser's Fury as a bonus. Not really a full game, but it's definitely sandboxy. It's so sandboxy that there aren't individual levels at all. You unlock new areas, in a set order I might add, but this is otherwise an open world game. You can go around at your own pace, collect cat shines in any order you want, etc. It's going in the same quadrant as Mario 64, only with slightly more sandboxy levels and a slightly more linear story progression. So there you go. I think Nintendo's timeline oversimplified the issue, and here's my alternative way of categorizing 3D Mario design. This is an open discussion though, I can totally see different points of view nudging a few of these games into various different positions. Let me know what you think in the comments, and have a great day!